Hello, good morning, and welcome to Thoughts and Updates. Here I am, still at the house, and still with dawn about to break behind me. It is a little bit wet because it's raining. It's not raining hard or anything, but we are certainly now out of the throes of summer. Although we have days of great sunshine, it's not days of great warmth. And heading towards the school holidays here in October in Scotland, which allows the Scottish Government to perhaps plan for a more extensive lockdown to try and beat this particular virus back. We've seen during the last 7 days just exactly how virulent this virus has become. It's back. This is what was suggested would be the second wave. And we have tried to deal with it slightly differently, kickstart the economy, try to make sure that there is some kind of response that allows us to still have as close to normality as possible, but at the same time, it's killing people. And a member of our family now has it, and that's a worry and a concern. But this time around, there seems to be less death, which is nothing but a good thing. We also have seen how it has managed to get into a lot of the events that we're trying to get back up and running. Scottish Premiership game on Friday night, Kilmarnock versus Motherwell, was postponed because Kilmarnock staff had to go into quarantine, into lockdown. Eddie Hearns had to leave his bubble in Milton Keynes, where he's got a full card tonight of fighters. The Sale Sharks rugby team have also had a match postponed because of COVID-19. And of course, Donald Trump is not immune. The virus that he said that was just going to disappear seems to be too unlikely to so do. In fact, it seems to have infected not just him, but many in his government. And you've got to think to yourself, all these anti-vaxxers, all these QAs, all these people, QAnons, all these people who are thinking that it's a hoax and that Donald Trump is the great saviour, what do they do now when their great saviour has actually been infected by the very thing they say doesn't exist? I'm sure there's a conspiracy theory out there that's going to actually explain that one away. However, one of the things I've been doing this week when I've learnt is the coffee thing. Manumit is a company down in London who take on people who have been slaves, and they train them as baristas, train them as coffee grinders, coffee roasters, and give them some kind of hope in future. I've been getting coffee from them on a regular basis, and then it started to back up and I had too much. And I've looked for coffee all over the place. Artisan in Scotland, there's Monkey Roast, I think it's called, down in Ayrshire, both of which fantastic coffees, by the way. Manumit was something that was close to my heart. I had to cancel my subscription. Now, when you do that with companies, the thing that you expect is, I did that with a couple of things recently, and you get the why you going, we want to offer you this, we'd like to do that, da 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 da. Manumit, hi guys, I want to cancel. Not a problem, Donald. Thanks very much for your time. All done. Within a couple of hours of me emailing, so I emailed them back and said, you know what? Because you've done it that way, I'm going to keep you on in some format. I'm going to look at your stuff and maybe get some coffee from you in the future once I've run down the supplies that I've got here. Lorna's a bit fed up seeing these packages coming through with coffee smells, which are all for me, but not for anybody else, because nobody else drinks the coffee that I do. The coffee that everybody else drinks is Tesco's strength number 5 cheap rubbish, which is brilliant, especially first thing in the morning. However, big shout out there for to Manumit and customer service, because, and I would, if anybody wants to have a wee go at buying any kind of coffee that's not instant and a wee bit different and support an exceptional cause, Manumit is the way to go. Manumit is the people to contact. So, this week in writing, I am again having a very busy week, particularly at work. We are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and a new member of staff started this week, which is the second new member of staff for me in a month. There's a possibility of another one coming thereafter. It's all been a bit wow. We also now have got our approval to be an SVQ centre and also to be a centre for the assessor's qualification. So all great. And I'm about to take a kind of week and a half of holidays, which will mean that some of my writing will go to the side, and we continue to do this because this is easier But the writing has, again this week, ended up on a Sunday. I've got it all written, I just need to edit it. And in that, for Ringside Report, I'm looking at Larry Ekundayo, Nigerian-born fighter in the UK, and the context of being a Commonwealth fighter within the place which claimed his country as part of its empire, Britain. Also, Mr. Trump does a tax return this week, obviously, and I consider what it looks like over here, what's happening over there, and a new wee series that I'm calling From the Kale Yard. Kale Yard is a Scottish word. Go and look it up every day. For Talking Boys, obviously the weekend action is something that I've looked at, the Charlo brothers from last weekend, and I'm about to have a wee go and dig at the boxing fraternity, insofar as if we have to depend on a YouTuber versus the person who believes the greatest of all time for headlines, then it's a sad day. It's not a case of forgiving Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor went in against Floyd Mayweather and acquitted himself well enough to be given a huge amount of respect for what he does. Him against Manny Pacquiao, actually, is one that intrigues me, as Jamie Muir said in an interview this week. It's not one that I'm desperate to see, but it's one that I'd love to know the result of. You know that thing where you're not going to pay for the pay-per-view, but the following morning the first thing you do is you look it up on your phone to see what happened? It's that kind of intrigue, and I see it as a far more serious prospect than that nonsense with Floyd Mayweather and his circus. He's turning himself closer and closer to a kind of Roy Jones Jr. figure. So, nothing in theatre this week. It's not been a dull week, but it's been again. There's so much to contemplate, so much to think about. The Brighton Fringe Festival is about to start, and we at Fringe Review have been looking at offering our services to review online and in person, because Brighton is where Fringe Review is based. Scottish Football Supporters Association this week, I have looked at Ross Stewart's dad, helping him getting his move to Albion Rovers. He's now at Ross County and about potentially to have £1 million move down south. But his dad paid £500 to Albion Rovers to help Albion Rovers sign his son from co-winning Rangers. Great story. And I've juxtaposed that with what happened with Jurgen Klopp and Roy Keane during the week. But the one that's come out yesterday that I saw, it's a great wee one, I love it, is Mr. McInnes up in Aberdeen at a post-match press conference after a certain young lady had been in Pittodrie the morning before taking saucy snaps, and that hit the headlines, and then Aberdeen lost 3-0. So, a wee favourite piece of mine with, I think, a fairly good punchline. So, what have I learnt this week? Well, what I've learnt this week is that testing in the Scottish Professional Football League tends to be for those that can afford it. I've really struggled a lot with how the Scottish Professional Football League and the Scottish Football Association have responded to COVID. They managed to get money from someone in order to support the clubs, which I thought was a great. I think it was the person came forward rather than they looked to get some kind of charitable donation. And I wonder just how much of that could actually go to give comfort to League One, League Two and Championship clubs who have to test people, who've got people who are in part-time jobs, who are going to jobs every single day and therefore put themselves at risk, and then coming in at night to train with complete strangers, or people who are not part of their household, or people who they've known for many, many years but are just as much at risk as being found down the supermarket or out in the street. But here they're playing a sport which involves some contact. That is difficult to contemplate, that a sport would allow people to not be tested because they don't support it with a testing regime, when the clubs who are trying really hard, significantly hard, and I read a brilliant article this week by Jerry Hassan in Scottish Review about how the 42 clubs, and others by the way, places like Pollock, Kirkintilloch, Rob Roy, Cumbernauld Colts, all of these grassroots football teams and clubs really do need support. because they can't afford the testing. And we're talking £500,000 was quoted in Sportsound yesterday about testing across the SPFL and SFA for individual clubs. Anything like that kind of figure is going to close them down. So why aren't people asking the authorities to put their hands in their pocket and help out? I don't know. The other thing I've learned this week is something I've known for years: tax matters. Donald Trump's revelation that he's paid only $750 in federal taxes, for those of us in the UK, makes not a lot of sense. We do spend a great deal of time trying to figure out what happens in America, and we don't always understand it. But what we do understand is tax here in the United Kingdom. Now, we've lost a little bit of a connection between what we pay tax for and what we get in return, because during the 1980s, particularly fueled by the ideals and ideas of Milton Friedman and Frederick Hayek, Margaret Thatcher suggested that a low tax economy was the way ahead. We even got to the absurd point at which the Liberal Democrats, before they joined the coalition with the Conservative government, were prepared to stand up and say that low tax economies were a good thing. I am channeling my Seller and Yelpman there. However, the thing about low tax economies is that we are still a country that believes that we should be getting the types of service from those parts of our society that are funded by tax. So what we end up wanting is we want the services of a Scandinavian country with the tax regime of Texas, where there's, I believe, no income tax. Now, it is not going to work. Any 5-year-old, never mind some form of economist, is going to be able to tell you that if you don't put money into something, then you can't take money out of that. So that the state, who funds the National Health Service, the police, the fire, the army, the many services upon which our most vulnerable depend, if we don't pay sufficient tax, then those services are not going to be able to function properly. And what austerity in the United Kingdom has done is it has destroyed many services that used to be there for our most vulnerable. So the idea that somebody is attempting to avoid paying tax is ridiculous. Except it's a norm now. People are lauded and applauded for being able to avoid putting money into the commonweal. I'm a good businessman, says Trump, and that I use the laws in order to make my business better. Thanks to tax in the United Kingdom, when I was standing at the court when my daughter was born, I didn't have somebody standing next to me with an insurance form. Asked me to find the finances to pay for an open heart operation when she was 7 days old. Thanks to the taxes that you and I pay, where my son required a cochlear implant because he was born deaf, I didn't have to find the £30,000 odd that it was going to take to implant him and give him a better chance of society. That's what tax is for. This year, because I made a mistake in my tax, I grasped myself in and I ended up paying more willingly, because somebody somewhere has a son or a daughter who are going through exactly the same things. Somebody somewhere has a need for a home help. Somebody somewhere is my brother, my sister, my cousin, my family. And without me, when I am able to live in such a magnificent place with a lovely house with 3 cars at the front door, if I'm not paying in, they are not getting paid out. And I don't want to be part of a society where that happens. So, dear old Mr. Trump, dear old Mr. President, I wish you a speedy recovery, because I don't want you to avoid the day of reckoning. I want it to be something where we on the 4th of November wake up, like that McGregor-Pacquiao fight. We might not want to watch the car crash. There is your election defeat, but we want to hear about it. And I hope and I trust and I pray, and I'm not religious, that the American people do the right thing on the 3rd of November. So, fellow Americans, my new resistor friends over in America, with my Twitter feed going through the roof, thank you for all your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for following me on Twitter. It's a movement, but the movement has to have a purpose. And that purpose for me is to hold yourself up to account and others alongside you. So for the man who wants to avoid paying in to your common weal, I trust and I hope and I pray that you will all do the right thing and remind us all that by being together, what we are able to do is to be stronger, but we have to have a purpose. And some people may use that as a cheap slogan and have done in the past, but it is not the words but the deeds which will prove its worth. So, till next week, bye for now.